WSBA, with the latest news and weather on the hour, every hour. News Radio 910 WSBA. Depend on it.
Full speed ahead into hour number 2 of the Gary Sutton Show, the Thursday morning edition. I am Gary Sutton, just a regular guy in search of common sense and truth every single day. You can follow me on Twitter at Gary G. Sutton, also at Facebook.com/910WSBA, where, by the way, I love reading what a lot of you have to say, and it's a really thoughtful stuff. Thank you for sitting down and taking the time to be thoughtful. That's really what we're all about, and we want to try to figure some of this stuff out, don't we? One of the things that we've heard an awful lot about here in the new year, and it obviously is a strategy point for Democrats, and yet it's worthy of examination, is what's at the core of the inequality debate that's out there right now. Why are some people poor and others rich? And is one happening because of the other? And we wanted to do a little economics 101 today, so I can't think of a guy that's better at helping me to do that than the plain-spoken, regular guy who's also a financial strategist at Hodges Capital in Dallas, Clark Hodges, who joins us every week. Good morning, Clark. How you doing?
I'm good. If you knew what I made in economics in college, you'd probably hang up. So
no, I'm not good at you. Well, you're doing pretty well now, though, right?
Well, after 20-some-odd years doing it, you get a little bit good at it, I guess.
Well, okay. All right. But
Speaking of Twitter, the other night I was watching the State of the Union, and I just on my Twitter feed, I put up a picture of Boehner's face when Obama mentioned how he was taking care of the health care issue. It was so funny to see his face. And I noticed a lot of people on Twitter were doing the same thing.
You know what I noticed that night also? And I always watch before the president comes in and, who's hanging out on the aisle and all that kind of stuff. And it's usually the same culprits. And by the way, I think the State of the Union is a waste of time. The State of the Union address, I think, send a letter. Hey, things are going pretty well. Here's some of the problems. We'll take care of them. Talk to you later. But, you can take about 2 minutes to do this. But it was Boehner and Joe Biden never talked. They were sitting there looking straight ahead. I mean, those guys had nothing to say to each other. I thought, wow, that's kind of interesting because, Biden used to be, one of the guys in the Senate, but I don't think Biden and Boehner have any love lost there. I thought maybe we'd see maybe a cage match before the president came in, which I'm always rooting for because I root for chaos. But there you go. Anyway, one of the things we've been talking about a lot is this whole gap. And I wanted to get into some things with you this morning because, you and I both talk pretty plain about these things. Liberals think that this whole inequality debate that, some people are poor, others are rich, is rigged to support the privileged and keep down the poor. Conservatives say it's work and culture and that working hard and making the right choices will lift you up. And I was looking at this survey, the Pew Research Center, it was about a week ago, found that most people believe being rich has to do with having more advantages than others. Only about a third believe wealth is a result of hard work. Chew into that a little bit for me. Tell me what you think.
Well, two things. Hard work does not necessarily guarantee wealth because you could work hard at a labor job that's hard work, but you don't get paid or you don't have room to grow in the position. So I think getting an education is a key to then going out and saying hard work works. But I think one point, and this goes in line with what I do for a living, so that's maybe where it's coming from. But I think one point that a lot of people fail to recognize, rich and poor, this country allows us to have ownership in companies. And regardless of anything else in your situation, if you own something, you have a chance for that wealth to grow. And it doesn't take a lot of money in the stock market to become an owner of a business. And you can be a part owner of all these wonderful American companies. And I think people don't recognize what that can do for you over time. And I'm really getting to the fact that with $20 a month or $200 a month, you can dollar cost average into mutual funds, and you can create wealth. And what that does for you when you're doing that is it helps you monitor what you spend, and you don't spend as much because you have the mindset of, if I don't spend this $20 on beer this week, I could put this $20 in my mutual fund account and let it grow. And obviously you don't recognize it when you're young, but I think that's a key ingredient. It's not how much you make, it's how much you save. And if people recognize that no matter what job they're in, they could take a small amount of money every month and create wealth for themselves over time, that this whole argument would be a lot different.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I've not heard anybody really talk about it that way, Clark, that, you have the ability to create wealth out there if you just, and you don't have to have thousands and thousands of dollars, even hundreds of dollars necessarily, to get in there. By the way, you're welcome to get in during this segment with Clark this morning. 2-3 is never, ever, ever a crowd on the Gary Sutton Show. 1-800-357-0910. I wrote down something while you were talking, and it just hit me, and it hit me a certain way. It said, your choice of what you want to do is your choice. If you want to make money, go to where you have to go to make a lot of money. And that means you also have to have the tools to do that. You might have to go to school. You might have to go to an extra school. You might have to, find the people out there where the money's made. But no one says you can't do that. It simply says you're going to have certain qualifications to do that. But one of the things I think that troubles me today a lot in this whole Economics 101 lesson we're trying to teach this morning is that there is at least a perception, Clark, and it could be just that. It could be a perception, but I think it's more than this. You should be guaranteed wealth. You should be guaranteed. The president kind of alluded to that. You should be guaranteed a certain amount of money. And suppose you don't earn a certain amount of money. What do we do with you?
Yeah, that's just a dangerous precedent right there, because it creates a state of, this is mine, I'm going to take it, no matter who made it or earned it. And I think it's the worst thing that he could perpetuate out into the country and the attitude. And I really think that's a dangerous precedent. Nothing is guaranteed. And you talk about most people believing that, advantages that they have create their wealth, but you've got to take the time to create your advantages. A book I read one time on a guy who did very well in his career, made a lot of money, said the key to it was that when he was a kid, he worked at the golf course caddying for people, and that was his network of people that he met, so that later in life he could go to these people and get into colleges or get jobs or get sales or whatever he was trying to do, because he knew those people growing up. And he put himself across the tracks, so to speak, to be able to do that. So you got to put yourself in situations. And when you do put yourself in situations and then you work hard, that's when you get the opportunity to create wealth for yourself.
It's interesting. That's how I kind of got. That was my first job, was caddying. My dad would drop me off at 6 in the morning, pick me up at 6 at night. Usually caddied double bags twice a day. Good exercise, but you walked about 10 miles for the day.
Yeah.
And I got if I double carried, that's $8 a round. It was $4 a bag. I got $16 for the day, and I thought, man, that was like the most money I'd ever seen in my whole life.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, I think today some kids would say, or some people would say, geez, I have to go to the government. I got to get more money out of this because these guys are really filching me. And that's really where we're at. But I'm also stunned a little bit when the president talks about getting into the middle class. So over here, to the people who want to work hard and who want to go after wealth, we say, okay, you go after wealth. And these other people over here say, well, all you can really afford to get into is the middle class. When do we start putting ceilings on reaching for the stars in this country? I mean, that to me seems to be, every time he says that, we're reaching for minimums instead of reaching for maximums. And in this country, we've always reached for maximums, I thought, right?
Right. I mean, you live in the greatest country in the world, and there should be no limit on what you try to achieve, because there really is no limit. So reaching for maximums is kind of your Republican mindset, and reaching for minimums is kind of your Democratic mindset. And it goes to this whole minimum wage thing. You shouldn't aspire to make $10.10 an hour. You should aspire to get out of that job making $10.10 an hour and do better for yourself. And the people who have this opinion, because of Obama, I believe, are looked at as mean or, Satan, or they're not nice people. But when you take care of yourself, the only helping hand you really need is at the end of your sleeve. And I don't get that mentality.
I was looking at more at this Pew Research poll, and it said half of those surveyed, you'll bristle at this one, Clark, believe that people are poor because of, quote-unquote, circumstances beyond their control. Only 35% believe it has to do with the lack of effort. I mean, that's kind of frightening. More than half the people believe it's circumstances beyond their control. Now, I won't dispute that there are circumstances out there that certainly put a crimp on a lot of us, but I've seen people, and I talked to Benjamin Carson one day, one of 20 kids, who found every way he could do to get out of his situation. Today's one of the most brilliant brain surgeons in the world, has accumulated wealth, but I wouldn't think that his wealth is what he dwells on. It's the wealth of being able to help people. So there's a guy that worked hard and said, I don't care what my circumstances are, I'm going to beat them. Have we let circumstances become the main excuse for getting us out of having to do something that's going to make us successful in the long run? Sure.
It's easy to sit on the couch and use that as an excuse and just bemoan the fact that you didn't get this or didn't get that. That's easy. What people fail to realize is the big picture of what goes on in their life. I mentioned the caddy story. It wasn't the money the guy made. It was the connections he made. But when he was doing that job, he didn't think about that. You don't realize that till afterwards. And when you go through hard times and something goes against you, it's what, one door shuts, another one opens. It's what it does for your character and makes you experience in life that turns around and could be a positive. You've heard many times where someone will say, well, that ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me, and it was a failure at the time. So that's the attitude you have to get ahead in this world, instead of saying, oh, poor me, this happened or that's happened. But, polls like that, I think, are, so ridiculous, because who knows what the situation that these people are referring to, what led up to it. But when you have a job and you have an income and you make bad spending decisions, you have no one to blame but yourself. And doing radio interviews and giving advice to people, the first thing everybody should do every month is pay themselves and put money aside for their future. And I guarantee you, half the people don't do that.
Great way to look at it is pay yourself. And, that's the thing that I think people need to be aware of, is that you are in control of that amount of money. So what are you going to do with it? And people say, well, I got to pay the bills, I got to pay this. Yeah, okay. So now how are you going to do that? But maybe the first thing you want to do is, what are you going to put back? What are you saving right now? What can you put aside? I was amazed during the recession that people went from being, and I saw this in a couple different publications, that people went from being 1% savers to saving 5%, which was amazing to me, because people became more acute, that you had to put money aside, and people were worried about risk, and people were worried about how much they were spending, so they cut back. Government didn't, but we did.
Yeah, you've got to pay yourself first, and you've got to put money aside, and the government's not going to do it for you, but I really do. This whole My IRA thing, I guarantee you right now there are people out there that are saying, oh my gosh, now we've got it. We're going to have this tremendous retirement account. Well, I got news for you. When you're buying bonds at those rates, you're not going to create wealth at 1% a year. And it's not really what he showed it to be in the speech.
And we're going to come back a little bit, Clark. I want to talk to you about also Hire America. Let's go out and hire some new people, and let's raise the minimum wage up to $10.10. And you should do that right now. I'm sure you're doing it in your company, right? We'll come back and ask you that when we return. Clark Hodges, financial strategist with Hodges Capital, with us here on the Gary Sutton Show. Do you have a question for Clark? Feel free to call, or me, 1-800-357-0910, here on the Gary Sutton Show on News Radio 910 WSBA.
And I said, hey, Lama, hey, how about a little something, for the effort, And he says, there won't be any money. But when you die on your deathbed, you will receive total consciousness. So I got that going for me.
Yeah, we were talking about caddying a few moments ago. There's Bill Murray in Caddy Shack when he's talking about the Dalai Lama trying to stiff him right after a big round. Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I had a guy try to do that one time. I had a guy actually, I was on the last hole caddying for this guy. It was unbelievable, Clark. You'll get a kick out of this. You play golf?
Yes.
Okay, so you all understand this, right? So the last hole, we were always trained by a guy named Gypsy, by the way. He was one of the meanest guys I've ever met in my whole life. He was our caddy master. And he said, listen, he said, you got to watch the ball to the end. And he said, if you lose a ball, he said, you won't get another caddy job. So, we really paid attention because I couldn't afford to sit around all day and not do something. So anyway, on the last hole, this guy hits his drive. And there's like a trap out there about 200 yards. And he says, I hit it in the trap. And I said, excuse me, sir. I said, you hit over the trap. You're fine. He said, no, I did it. I'm in the trap. I said, I'm sorry, sir. I thought I saw it go over the top. So I'm trying not to be,
right.
I'm a kid at that point. So the guy says, I'll tell you what. He said, how sure are you? I said, well, I'm sure. He said, all right. He said, if it's in the trap, he said, you don't get paid today. And then,
wow.
And we're talking about $16. And he said, but if it's over the trap, I'll pay you double. I said, he said, would you like to take that chance? I said, yes, sir. I said, I've got your ball marked out there about 25 yards past the trap. So we walk out. The ball's out there past the trap about 20, 25 yards. So we get in, and I didn't say anything. I didn't smile. I didn't do anything. I didn't act like, I just won a bet. And we walk in, and the other players heard him say it. So we go in. He goes in the clubhouse. He tries to stiff me. And
wow.
I didn't have eternal consciousness going for me at that point in time. So I thought, eternal consciousness is not paying, me today. So anyway, the one finally, and I didn't know what to do. Do I go in after the guy? Because I'm not really supposed to be in the clubhouse. And so I wait out there, and all of a sudden one of his partners came by and said, did he pay you that? And I said, no, he hasn't come out yet. So the guy went in and just berated him, and the guy came out and paid me that. But he's trying to stiff me. I couldn't believe it.
That's amazing. He's a sore loser.
And that's why I hate the wealthy so much today, Clark, because of that. I got right there. I was getting screwed over the whole thing. Hey, two things. The president said the other night in the address, hire America. Get out there right now and hire America. Hire people. Just hire. Here's a guy. He mentioned about the guy in the pizza shop and the guy making the dough, and he hired him. The one thing he left out was the guy hired him on his own. The government didn't tell him to hire him, so he's got a pizza guy up in the stands. And then he talks about the minimum wage, that I'm going to raise it to $10.10 for certain federal contractors that make food for our soldiers and that kind of thing. And I'm saying, okay, you're making it $10.10. Who's paying for that difference right now from what it is? We are. But on the other side, on the minimum wage, most minimum wage jobs should be the starting wage you get when you're working as a kid, like I was, right? You talk about, all right, if you're going to McDonald's and you're going to get a job, start it out, but you don't want to live on that the rest of your life. That's not the idea.
Yeah, you don't want to aspire for that. You want to aspire to be better than that. And it's like a pep rally, that speech the other night. But, can't you see across America business owners going in the next day and saying, hey, let's go out and hire people just because Obama said to.
Right.
And that's a joke. He doesn't understand that people get hired because there's a need, and they're going to get hired, and the company's going to make a profit. So they're not going to just go out and hire people just because it's the American thing to do, which is crazy. So, it goes to show, again, in my opinion, he does not understand the private sector.
No.
For him to get out there and just say, hey, hire everybody, come on, let's all feel good about ourselves. But you're in business to make a profit, and that's never going to change. And anybody that says they shouldn't be in business to make a profit and they should just go out and hire willy-nilly just because President Obama says so is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's not authentic. Nobody goes out and starts a business and says, okay, I'm going to hire 100 people. I only need 2, but I'm going to hire 100 because I want to help unemployment in America right now. No, that's not why you do that.
Right.
You go out and you start a business and you work your way up and you have more, money along the way to do that as you get better in your business. The minimum wage. Most people in this country are paying beyond the minimum wage, and especially if you have to be competitive with other people looking for the same people out there, right?
Right. You're going to need to be competitive to keep employees happy, to keep them around. You got to offer packages that will keep good employees around, or they're going to go somewhere else and get a better deal. And that's what creates salary increases for people. If they're a good employee, loyal, work hard, and they're going to get a fair deal. If they're not getting a fair deal, then they have every right in the world to take their talents and go somewhere else.
Yeah, competition in that case drives up prices for you if you're better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My firm, we're a small boutique operation. We've got about 30 employees, We're not a big mutual fund complex, but we're a nice-sized complex. But if we want to attract talent, we've got to offer the same type benefits and pay that any big, huge, billion dollar mutual fund company would have out there, because we want to compete. So we've got to do the same thing, or they're going to get hired away from us and go work for the big 90-pound gorilla.
And I guess the big lie here in the whole thing, we've got about 30 seconds left, is the fact the president says, well, these people, and everybody stands up and cheers the other, I don't know, great, they're going to raise the minimum wage. What a sucker's bet that is, because, again, ages 16 to 25, it's a starting salary. You don't aspire to make that for the rest of your life. You aspire to start at that, and hopefully as you get better doing your job, then you're going to make more money, right?
Right, exactly. There's an old saying, you never know how broke you are until you start making money. And when you try to live independently, pay your rent, pay your mortgage, pay your bills, support your family, then you recognize this minimum wage isn't going to cut it, and you need to do something, and you're responsible for that. And the minimum wage raising is only going to hurt the middle class, and that's what people don't realize. Just like Obamacare is only going to do is hurt the middle class.
Clark, you have a way of saying it that makes me able to understand. Thank you so much, as always, my friend.
Well, have a good weekend, Gary.
Have a great one. Take care.
Who are you rooting for in the Super Bowl?
Denver. Just because of Manning, that's really the only reason. I don't have any, I don't hate Seattle or anything, but just for that reason, I'm not that interested in it. But if I was, it would be for Manning and Denver. Okay. How about you?
Well, I'm going for Seattle just because I like the way they play and aggressive defense and kind of a no-name type organization. So it'll be a good game. Really.
I think it will be too. Clark, as always, thanks so much, my friend. Take care.
Thanks, Gary.
Clark Hodges with us on the Gary Sutton Show.